Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another live. Today is Sunday, November the 1st, and it is 9 o'clock. I have made a number of changes. Tonight's live will be a little bit shorter, okay, a lot shorter, about half the time. I changed the name also to Study with Peter. So I'm debating between Peter and Pete. So I'll answer that question probably next week. There's be some other changes also that I will ask you about later. So thank you for attending tonight's live. Let's go directly to share screen. Here we go. It'll take about 10 seconds. And please be patient. Whoops. Let's do it like this. Here we go. And we're ready to go. So I'm on share screen and I'm going to my PowerPoint right now. And here we go. Tonight is called, we'll go get to that later, I suppose. As you know, I start with this first slide. Let's get started. Vamos começar. Everybody knows this already. Let's get started. And stuff, we'll go through this very quickly. New text for will be in the bold, italics in the prepositions, asterisk will be the adverbs with ly, and you'll see that you know most of these. You don't just have to look at it one time. Brackets, third column, and then the red letters be any words with any, some, no, and every. The blue words, the words in blue will be the essential words, and then the underline will be the key words. Now, the key words tonight, that's why we have that's why again. Look at that a little differently. And then as, igualdades, as. I'm going to make some mistakes, I think, on these tonight in Portuguese. And I need to work on this area, as. Himself, now this is a reflexivo. Himself, ele mesmo. And then could, would, and should. You guys know these. Could, poderia, would, sufixo ia, votaria, compraria, deveria, traria, ajudaria. So would be the sufixo, and then should. Should is deveria. Could, poderia, would, sufixo ia, e should, deveria. And then the gerunds. Gerunds are always important, guys. This is a confusing part of English. These are the words that end with ing, but they're not verbs. I am buying. Okay, that's fine. But we will look at these exceptions where these are not verbs after a preposition, the subject or the object, and then the adjective, and then after certain verbs. All right, let's go quickly to our presentation tonight. And it's called What If? You say, what if the Bible was never written or never was written? So what if the Bible was never written? So let's take a quick look here. And this will be a first in a series tonight. And today we're going to look at marriage. Now, marriage, as you know, is casamento. We're going to look at some of the vocabulary because these are questions I get all the time. Marriage is casamento, the institution. Now, the verb is marry with y. And then in the institution of marriage, we have the husband and the wife. So husband and wife are after they get married, your husband and the wife. Now, the ceremony, I hope I spelled that correctly, is casamento also. But this is just the ceremony. So wedding. We do have the verb wed. Now this is a gerundio also. So the verb is wed. And then the ceremony is wedding. Então. And then in the ceremony, you have the bride and the groom. So noiva, noivo. And then we have fiancé. Fiancé are the man and the woman, both. It's a French word, as you see, with And they, after you propose, after they agree to get married, then they become noivos. But after the proposal, proposta, I guess, in Portuguese. Então, now let's look in the New Testament. Now, marriage was different from the rest of the world, according to the New Testament. Back then, women were expected to be faithful. Now, here is expected. Esperadas, I guess. They were expected to be faithful. You know this word, faithful, full of faith. Fiel, to their husbands. Women were expected to be faithful. This is true in all the cultures. Women were expected to be faithful to their husbands, and well, while the men could do whatever they wanted. I hate to say, I have to speak the truth here. This is realistic. The women were expected to be faithful, and the men were, with man, woman, or child. And this is true especially in Greece and the Western cultures. And it's very different than what we have today. Extremely different. Now in Rome, Nero got married twice as the emperor. I guess that would be emperador. He was the emperor and got married twice when he was emperor. And one of those times, one time as the bride. He was the noiva and the noivu in two. So times were definitely different back then. Now in the Old Testament, now this is the Old Testament times. This is when the Old Testament was being written, let's say before 400 BC. Proverbs served as a warning. I remember warning, warn is a cautelar officially. Nobody knows this word. I guess that's Portuguese from Portugal. But cautelo is warning. A cautelar is the verb. So you would say warn as the verb is alertar. I can't remember the other word. So warning is a cautelo, served as a warning. Don't do this, don't do that. And the men, they treated their wives as equals, more or less, a little paternalistic, but they treated their wives as equals. But something changed in Jewish culture. Something changed over time. Now, after conquering Israel, Greece brought their values with them. And, values and valores. Greece brought their values with them. And this happened in 332 BC. And to give you an idea, you remember Aristotle. Aristotle, great philosopher. What did he say? He said, the relation of male to female is by nature, relation of male to female, is by nature, now this word, nature, natureza, almost the same, a relation of superior to inferior and ruler to ruled. He said some other things that were very different. But this is true in all the other cultures, almost all the Western cultures, where not only was it paternalistic, but it was truly on different levels, where they're superior to inferior and ruler to rule. Now, ruler, rule is governar, and the ruler is somebody who rules, and the women were to be ruled. So this is only one. Então, by the time of Jesus, there's that by the time, quando chegou a hora, o momento, or época, I guess, of Jesus, things had changed drastically. You know this word in Portuguese, drasticamente. So by the time of Jesus, quando chegou a hora, or época de Jesus, things had changed drastically. Now this is past perfect. It started and it stopped, obviously, when Jesus entered this world. So the Greek culture had spread to Israel. What is that word spread? That is espalhar. So we spread butter, manteiga, on our bread. spread, the same thing. So the Greek culture had spread. Aristotle, or not Aristotle, Alexander was the one who conquered Israel, and he spread Greek culture everywhere he went. He brought, not when he conquered the different cultures, he brought the scientists with him, the scientists of the day, the philosophers, to learn and to spread the Greek culture. So it wasn't just conquering, but it was worse. They wanted to spread the Greek culture. And we'll look at that maybe in another, well, we will look at that, I'm sure. And over time, con tempo, over time, many of the Jews envied the Greek philosophers. You know that word philosopher? Envy. That should be E-N-E-V-Y. Desculpa. E-N-E-V-Y. Envy is invejar. Envy. E-N-E-V-Y. Desculpa. I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. And that's why the Pharisees became popular. They were very conservative. They didn't like the changing culture, the Pharisees. So they didn't like what was happening in Israel, but they were as corrupt as the previous religious class. Now, as corrupt, tão corrupto quantos o classe religioso prévio. You know, the word previous, prévio, anterior. So they were as corrupt as. Now, this is igualdade. The old religious class was corrupt, and igual to the old religious class. They were as corrupt as the previous religious class. This will be a future perfect tense that involves an extended time. Hell will have frozen. Now, you know this word freeze, congelar, se tornar gelo. So freeze, froze, frozen. And everybody has a freezer. What does a freezer do? A freezer freezes. So the verb is freeze, froze, frozen. Então, by the time I wash the dishes, Brazil will have a new president probably. So, então, and by the time I get finished tonight, quando chegou a hora, momento, you will be sleeping. Okay, that's only going to be a few more minutes. But all right, now what happened next in Israel, Pedro? Well, the religious class became corrupt and more corrupt and more corrupt. And there was no respect for marriage anymore. So the Greek culture had invaded the Jewish culture now, and there was no respect for marriage from anybody. And it was just like the Greek culture. The women were expected to be faithful. The men went and did whatever they wanted. Sorry, guys, but again, the reality. So there's no respect for marriage or for women. There's that word anymore, mais, anymore. And that's a negative. No respect for marriage. Now in Luke 18:11, what does this say? This will help us with understanding who the Pharisees were. And it says the Pharisee stood alone, away from, just longe de, but not or fora do caminho, really away. Let's think fora do caminho. So it can be close, can be far, but it's just out of the way. So the Pharisee stood alone. Now you know this word alone can be sozinho or can be solteiro. So I did this alone. Eu fiz isso sozinho. Or I was alone. It can be solteiro, maybe, I believe, in Portuguese. Now, when he prayed, he said, God, I thank you that I am not as bad as, and tão ruim quanto as outras pessoas, as bad as, igual I thank you that I'm not as bad as. In other words, I'm better. I'm good. I'm a really good person. I'm not as bad as other people. I am not like men who steal. Now, steal, furtar, cheat. You remember this word, cheat, trapacear, or commit adultery. Adulterio. Adulterio. And I thank you that I'm better than this tax collector. Now, remember, the tax collector is the worst of Jewish culture. They're the worst. The taxes, it was coerção. Oh, nossa! It was almost a criminal organization, but it was legal from a Roman culture. So they kept aumentando the taxes people had to buy, and it was worse and kept getting worse and worse and worse. And the methods these tax collectors used was very bad. So absolutely nobody liked these tax collectors. And so this Pharisee said, I am better than this tax collector. He had alvos altos, high goals for himself. Então, now there were 5 comparisons in this section here. I'm not as bad as other people. I'm not like men who steal. Now there's that like, como. And then this is a simile. And I am not like men who cheat. And I'm not like men who commit adultery. So there's 3 right there. And I thank you that I'm better than this tax collector. So very interesting. Now, the only problem, this is one of the key words, única, in this case, única problema, único problema. The Pharisees were worse than other people. They stole, they cheated, and they committed adultery, and they were no better than the tax collector. And this is common knowledge. And I mentioned this to one of my students this week, conhecimento comum, I guess, in Portuguese. Everybody knew this in the Jewish culture. And if you read Josephus, he mentions that the religious class was corrupt, terribly corrupt. They were no better than the tax collector or anybody else. So they had high ambitions, high thoughts about themselves. And they were hypocrites. I forget this word, hipócritas, I think in Portuguese, hipócritas. Now we have to pronounce that as the Cariocas, hypocrites. Sorry, guys. So they were hypocrites. Now the Pharisees se tornaram the Jewish religion today. Back then, in Jesus' time, there were many different parts, factions in the Jewish religion. And today, there's just one, and this is the Jewish religion. But there are some different people in the religion, or different factions, I guess, in the religion. But it's almost all is in the Jewish religion. So all the other factions foram embora, went away. And the Jews in church, in synagogue, I should say, they have a prayer that they still say today. And what is it? Thank you, God, for not making me a woman, a Gentile, or a slave, escravo. So thank you, God, for not making me a woman, a Gentile, or a slave. Oof. They still haven't learned. So here's the gerund, thank you for, and then that's the preposition, not making me a woman. They truly have not learned. Now, what did Jesus have to say about this? Well, Jesus said these words twice in Matthew. And that's a wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign, sinal, and a wicked and adulterous generation looks for a sign. So 2 different verbs involved. But both times he said a wicked and adulterous generation. And in Portuguese, uma geração má e adúltera. Now, this is espiritualmente and physicamente, spiritually and physically. They were an adulterous generation, truly adulterous. It's bad. We don't hear about that today, but it is true. Luke called the Pharisees lovers of money, amadores of money. And it is no wonder, remember that from last week? É óbvio. Now tem que pensar. It's no wonder Jesus called them hypocrites. It was obvious at the time. Jesus called them hypocrites. Então, now what does the Bible say about marriage? Yes, Pedro, what does it say? Now I'm only going to look at one area about marriage, and that's for the men. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Oof. Love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Oof. Who fell? Can I say that? I just created another word in Portuguese. Então, so give up can be desistir or render. And I'm hoping that render is correct. I surrender in war. So I give up. Don't shoot me. I give up. Sou seu prisioneiro. I don't know. I need to look at that. So God, here Christ gave himself up. He surrendered for the church, for her. Now here he's calling the church her. This is the bride of Christ. The church is the bride of Christ. And we will look at this later in the series. Now this was radical for the time. You know, this word, radical, this was radical. And it's radical today. Ooh, isn't it? Isn't it, men? Now challenge, remember desafiar? And challenging is desafiador. It's still radical and challenging for us men. This is agape love. You know, this is the highest form of love. We have looked at agape love, or agape in Portuguese. Então, it is a goal. Remember, we looked at this, I believe, 2 weeks ago. It is a goal, objetivo, that is difficult for men. It's a goal, very difficult for men, isn't it? Why is that? Now, notice I put that with the sublinhados, palavras sublinhadas. Why did I say that? You turn that around, why is that becomes that is why. So this is the question we learn the reason. Why is that? Well, here's the answer. This is my idea of washing dishes. And here we are. So I try, okay? Sometimes I fail, but I try. So, now it can be worse for my wife. How is that? Well, there's an expression. Men will be men. Unfortunately, I'm sure this is, I don't know if this exists in Brazil, but men will be men. Well, not always true. Bad men will be bad men. Now it should be changed today, now. I should say nowadays, hoje em dia, nowadays. This expression should, debería, be changed. Well, why? Because today women can be like the men. Women can be like men. Women will be women. That's now. Então, according to the culture, do whatever you want, women, like the men. They're trying to, literally trying to destroy you. And because women have never been more miserable today than in the past. Con todos os métricos, medidas, women today are more miserable. I wonder why. It is no wonder they are more miserable. Women have never been more miserable than today. Então, women, are you glad you're living today? Now, remember, glad is feliz in one thing or one area. Are you glad you are living today? Absolutely. It could be worse. You could marry a Jewish guy or Aristotle, somebody like Aristotle. Oof, you don't want that. Anyhow, it is not perfect. Remember, men are not perfect, but we should try. And that's the challenge. We need to be challenged to love our wives as Jesus loved the church, all of us. He gave his life for us. But it is better than the alternative. Believe me, it is much better than the alternative. And we will return to this theme later. I don't know about next week, but we'll return to this theme. Anyhow, but first, it's quiz time about tonight's live. Select the right option below. Seleccionar opção correta. And below is so abaixo. And you see the two words there, below. Low, baixo, e be, verbo to be, below. Então, now here's, please select the right option. After bling, I forgot how to wash the dishes. I forgot. Esqueci lavar as louças. Now here we use how to wash dishes. Is it after married? After marrying? After to marry? Or after getting married? Or E, B, and D? What is the answer? We have five options. Married, marrying, to marry, getting married, or marrying and getting married. What is the answer? The answer is, the answer is E. I'm sorry, I didn't put the answer there. The answer is E. After marrying and after getting married. So B and D. Now remember, this is the preposition after. So in English, we say, I got married. In Portuguese, eu me casei. Reflexivo. So in English, it is just the verb here, but it's in the gerund form. After getting married, can be both, but usually we say getting married. After getting married, I forgot how to wash dishes. Anyhow, number 2, what did the Pharisee not thank God for? He did not steal. He did not cheat. He did not commit adultery. He was better than the tax collector. Or E, he did not have to watch Faustão. Okay, so tonight's live is instead of Faustão. It can be much worse. Anyhow, so what is the answer? Of course, E, and he would have thanked God if he lived today. Okay. Anyhow, who conquered Israel in 332 BC? Was it Aristotle, the Apostle Paul, Alexander, Jesus, or say Silvio Santos? Hey, we got to have Silvio Santos in here tonight. Of course, the answer is C, Alexander, but Silvio Santos still remembers it vividly. You know this word, vividamente. So Alexander, but Silvio Santos was there. Anyhow, he saw it. And one more thing tonight, that will end our quiz for tonight, but I have one more question. I'm thinking about changing. There's the preposition about. I forgot to put that in italics. Changing the days and moving from Sunday to Tuesday or Thursday or Monday or Wednesday or Friday. Well, Monday is impossible. Tuesday and Thursday I have a small opportunity. Wednesday is difficult. And I'd like to do maybe on 2 days per week. So let me know on WhatsApp which day you prefer. And I will make a decision by next week. And here we will wrap up. Remember, wrap up is encerrar. We'll wrap up here tonight very early. So you can get back to Faustão maybe. Ooh, in town. See you next Sunday, everybody. So good night, and we'll talk more about the lives on next Sunday. So join me again next Sunday. Thank you very much, and see you again, students, during the week. And those who are not my students, see you next Sunday. Good night, everybody.